Hello and welcome back to Bit.Trip.Runner, Tenacity Part 2. I will speak to you again in 48 seconds. Alright, now that we're done with the level, it's time to offer my 5 cents. Slobbering Falls is a turning point, a kind of a turning point in the game where the levels themselves start to get more difficult. There were a couple of really complex jumps there. We were presented with a new mechanic where we have to stand up from our slide in order to pick up gold, much like with the spider there. There was even one jump that was almost pixel perfect, and those kinds of things will be more frequent in future levels. The difficulty of the retro bits does not ramp up quite as much, but I think it's only a good thing. When we start the game, the retro levels are definitely the harder part of the game, and they still are more challenging, but the relative difficulty curve is not quite as steep. But that will change sooner than you'd think. Gotta love that last bit with the gold right after the stones. Takes some pretty precise jumping, but if you've played the retro challenges up to this point, you've already acquainted yourself with those, so it's really no big deal. Retro mines with the holes with the gold in them, it's not a novel idea. We saw those in the first zone, so it shouldn't give you any trouble. I'm not sure why, but I really like the mechanic of having to stand up for some of the gold. But I swear, sometimes the hit detection for the gold is weird. There are times when I could have sworn I stood up at the right time, but then I just got a perfect fail instead and had to go back to the beginning of the stage. Oops. Well, good thing it happened so early on. More of those cubes, huh? Well, better get used to them. Stupid springboards. They always give me the hardest time. Middle of the middle is a pretty good example that the difficulty curve for the levels really fluctuates. It's pretty easy considering we're past the halfway point for the game and nearing the end of the zone. Man, I really don't appreciate when the game gives you choices, but there's only gold in one of the paths. It's just memorization, so you have to know where to go, but by the time you reach some of the retro levels, your nerves are shot, so you're bound to make mistakes there. Right now it's not too bad because the levels themselves are pretty tame, but let me tell you, in some of the later levels, it will be a persisting problem you have to deal with. And that brings us to the final level, Watcher's Watch. It's not quite as long as Odyssey, but more importantly, it's actually fun to play. Oh man, there goes my perfect score again. Such a little mistake too. So what is it about Watcher's Watch that makes it more enjoyable than Odyssey? Well, for one, it's colorful, it's more pleasing to the eye, but primarily it has to do with how the game treats the player. If you make a mistake, you're sent back to the beginning of the level, which is fine. But if that happens, you don't want to spend a first minute and a half doing the simplest of jumps and patterns. It's simply underestimating the player. And Odyssey falls for that trap. It always begins with the same tedious, most mind-numbing patterns imaginable. It almost relies on the fact that the gamer gets bored and just shuts off the game. Watcher's Watch, on the other hand, is interesting from start to finish. It never gets dull. And that's the main difference between Zones 1 and 2. Wow, a treadmill. Nice touch gaijin games. Springboard, and that's how you damage the boss. Oh, now Now that's clever, using the same pattern for the springboard. It made me intuitively jump over the third obstacle, but I won't fall for it twice. And that takes care of that. Rule of 3 never fails. Non-trotski is more interesting than Min-Prawn Temple Tot. And because he doesn't get close to you, it's also very possible to beat him on your first time. Anyways, I'll see you guys in Zone 3.